Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. And again, to another live stream. If you're new to my channel, I have these live streams regularly for more in-depth talk and analysis. I also post shorter videos on a regular basis, so you can go ahead to my video tab to check out any videos that I publish regularly. Before I continue, a shout out to Sudish, one of my viewers. I saw him today, really nice guy, so a big shout out to him. And it reminded me I need to make a gathering one day or a speech or something to meet some of the community. We need to do that one day, and I'm prepping something. I'll let you know if we can arrange something like that on my community tab. What I want to talk to you about in this video. Firstly, I posted another video earlier on about Noa Argamani, another Israeli who was released from Gaza, saying things that Israel doesn't want her to say. So Israel twisting the words and lying, and you can go ahead and watch it after this live stream. She was beaten by Hamas. They cut her hair. They did this and that. She came up with a statement saying, no, actually, it was Israel bombed us, bombed the building, and it collapsed on my head, right? So I was wounded all across of my body. Clearly, Israel is trying to spin what these people are doing to try and make it out as if, the Palestinians are torturing them and brutalizing them. But they don't have these people to defend them, although they're publishing things on mainstream media. That was the video that I posted. In this live stream, it's going to be diverse because I wanted to post a couple of videos earlier on. However, I thought I'd combine everything in one video. We're going to talk about multiple topics, and of course, afterwards, I'll open the space up for the community afterwards for any questions. So if you have any questions, anything directed to me, you can leave it for up until I finish. And if you wouldn't mind, keep it one or two at a time, just so that we don't miss some of your comments or questions. So, firstly, we have intensity. We have intensity from Yemen, we have intensity from Lebanon, and we have intensity from Gaza. What's been happening? Firstly, Hamas, Al-Qassam brigades, they released a video today where they targeted an Israeli force that is trying to expand the Netzarim line. You see, we have all of this talk about a ceasefire, and I'm going to get to the ceasefire and the withdrawal from the Philadelphi corridor. I'll leave that till last. There's talks and withdraw, and let's reach a deal, and. Okay, what is Israel doing when they're negotiating? Expanding the Netzarim line. The Netzarim line is the central part of Gaza where Israel is based towards the east, middle, and west. And they have bases there that they would like to remain there. They want them to be permanent. What are they doing? They're expanding. By what? By going to deeper locations into Gaza and planning to detonate buildings to have more bases for the Netzarim line. The resistance is monitoring them, and they exploded a building with an Israeli force. Tell al-Hawa area and Hayy al-Zaytun area in Gaza. Okay. Israel admitted that one was killed, 4 severely wounded, about 6 medium, and an additional 4 approximately lightly wounded. Now, when Israel says lightly wounded, that means they've been amputated, lost a limb. That's light for them. And again, you can expect to see some sort of confirmations maybe later on from Israel if they do, because that's what they usually do, especially when the Palestinian side releases videos. They'll say, we saw a hard day today. It was really hard on our troops. And then they will say, oh, this person died because of an attack a couple of months ago. They usually do that. But what was confirmed is that we had a very intense ambush, one of the most intense ones in the past weeks in Gaza, and many helicopters were seen in Gaza evacuating the wounded Israeli soldiers, signaling that, okay, the negotiations are going, but Israel is doing what it wants, and I'll reach the Philadelphia corridor in a sec. Moving on to Yemen. Yemen, they published a video today exploding a whole ship. Again, explosion, massive explosion of a ship linked to Israel. And they are continuing, again, saying we are doing this for the Palestinian people, embargo on Israel up until we have a ceasefire in Gaza and the siege is lifted off Gaza. And we warn any ships dealing with Israel from using different methods to try and deal with Israel. We're monitoring you. Clearly, Ansarullah, they have their ways of monitoring these ships and any methods they take to disguise themselves and act like, it's not gonna look like we're going to Israel or what have you. All right. Then Lebanon. In Lebanon, we had over 100 missiles landing on Israel today. 100 missiles from Hezbollah. The biggest attack that we had from Hezbollah came on Miron, Mount Miron base. This is one of two Israeli air surveillance bases. Israel has two main air command surveillance bases, one in Miron and one down south. The one in Miron is used to conduct operations to monitor the airspace across the northern part of Israel, and the northwestern side of the Mediterranean, Syria, Lebanon, parts of Turkey, and the areas surrounding. The one down south is in charge of gathering surveillance and information about the Gulf states, about Egypt, and things that happen in the Red Sea. So Israel only has two of these bases, and Hezbollah targeted this base in Miron multiple times, but today it was a very intense attack that led to a massive explosion, and smoke was seen coming out from the base. There was a lot of fire in that base. Yet, this is not considered to be the response. After that, what did Israel say? Israel said, we need to prepare. Start praying, everyone. They're asking people to pray. People in Israel start praying. Hezbollah's revenge is almost coming. Now we've had this intensity, and it looks like they're going to intensify further. However, Hezbollah did not say that this is the response. They targeted Miron, they targeted Kiryat Shmone with many missiles, they targeted other locations too, but no, that's not the response. That's not the response for Fuad Shukr, meaning we're still expecting something bigger from Hezbollah. Which leads me to the Philadelphia corridor. The Philadelphia corridor is one of the key elements and main obstacles in the ceasefire negotiations. Now, from my perspective, from my reading, with or without the Philadelphia corridor, Benjamin Netanyahu would have come up with any obstacle to prevent the ceasefire from happening. If it wasn't the Philadelphia corridor, he would have said something else. However, following the draft that all parties agreed upon, Israel invaded certain areas and took control over the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim line. Very shaky control. We're not talking about like substantial and reliable control, because they're constantly being attacked, including their main command bases in these areas. However, they're there and they're saying that we want to remain there. We want to stay there and we don't want to withdraw. Recently, Egypt showed a stronger position when it comes to the negotiations. When it comes to the Philadelphia corridor, they said, Hamas are saying, you can't remain in the Philadelphia corridor, therefore there's no negotiating over the Philadelphia corridor. You need to withdraw. You need to withdraw. And again, that's not just coming from Egypt supporting Hamas's position necessarily, but Egypt has a national interest in removing Israel from the Philadelphia corridor. Why? Because they're on their borders. And Egypt does not want Israel on its borders. It wants a Palestinian side on its borders because they know Israel has expansion plans and they don't want to make life easier for them when it comes to Gaza. Things became more complicated following Antony Blinken's speech. Remember Antony Blinken's speech that we spoke about a couple of days ago, during which he said, Benjamin Netanyahu agreed. Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to the deal. Well, what's happening? What do you mean agreed to it? He didn't agree to the deal. He agreed to the deal, and now it's time for Hamas to accept it. And if Hamas want what's good for the Palestinian people, they need to accept it. Benjamin Netanyahu did not accept it. What are you talking about? So what the parties involved understood was Antony Blinken is embracing Benjamin Netanyahu. Antony Blinken is protecting Netanyahu, and he is supporting the remaining of Israeli soldiers in the Philadelphia corridor. He's supporting the presence of Israelis in the Philadelphia corridor and in the Netzarim line to a level where the criticism wasn't only restricted to the negotiating delegations, but also spread to Israel. Why? Because the helpless Israelis who are looking for a ceasefire and genuinely want a ceasefire look at the United States as the savior. You see, some of them are naive. They're not understanding how things are going. But they beg Biden, they beg the administration, please apply some pressure on Netanyahu. Even when Blinken was there, you'll see families of the Israelis imprisoned in Gaza telling Antony Blinken, please, we need a ceasefire, apply some pressure, apply this, apply that. They even criticize Antony Blinken by telling him, why are you saying that our prime minister accepted a deal when he hasn't, and why are you making life easier for him? Okay, now they're trying to find a way out. What is this way out? Headlines. Netanyahu's agreeing to withdraw from the Netzarim line. With agreeing to withdraw from the Netzarim line, but where to? Okay, so we had an article in the Israeli newspaper website, Ynet, that belongs to the Israeli newspaper Yediot Ahronot, titled, "It will probably not lead to a breakthrough. Netanyahu agrees to a withdrawal of hundreds of meters from the Philadelphia corridor." So Netanyahu is agreeing to withdraw, but a few hundred meters. Why? So he can come back. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agrees to withdrawal of hundreds of meters from the Philadelphia corridor, but this slight flexibility is not expected to lead to a breakthrough in negotiations for a hostage deal. The updated outlines were transferred to Egypt, which is supposed to transfer them to Hamas. The Israeli delegation went to Cairo at the request of the President of the United States, Joe Biden, who spoke with Netanyahu yesterday and asked him to be more flexible on the issue of the Philadelphia corridor between Gaza Strip and Sinai. As part of the efforts to reach a deal, the Prime Minister agreed to change the location of one post to a distance of only a few hundred meters, something he believes does not harm the operational control along the axis. However, it is very doubtful whether Hamas, which insists on a full withdrawal, will agree to this. Israel is deployed along the Philadelphia corridor from Kerem Shalom to the sea. The Prime Minister insists that the principle that this situation will continue, contrary to the pressure of certain parties in the negotiating team who are ready to withdraw from there, said a source who asked to be called a party privy to the details in the negotiations. Who were they referring to in the people agreeing to withdraw? Well, all of the negotiating delegation. Why? Because they previously accepted the deal. And any previous deal that they accepted included Israel withdrawing from the Philadelphia corridor. Why? Because they knew that Hamas will not back down, and that is a red line for Hamas. They demand a full withdrawal from all of Gaza, including what Israel hopes to be buffer zones. And Hamas succeeded in expelling Israel previously, even from buffer zones, for example, in 2014, when Israel went on many massacres in Gaza for over 50 days, and Hamas eventually forced Israel to withdraw from the buffer zones, and they also forced Israel to give them a 3-kilometer radius to fish in the sea, because Israel wanted to prevent them from fishing, because Gaza's blessed with, if you leave Gaza alone, they're self-sufficient. But Israel doesn't want to leave them alone. Israel wants to make life as miserable as possible for them. That's why they're doing what they're doing in Gaza. They continue. The Syrian American admitted it's not clear if there will be a deal. It's a game of inches. I mean, it's a negotiation and it's slow. 1 centimeter forward for 1 centimeter back. It's very tough, but we don't intend to give up. The Israeli delegation to the talks in Cairo, led by the head of the Mossad, Dudi Berna, and the head of the Shin Bet Ronen Bar, returned to Israel last night after submitting to Egypt the updated outlines regarding the presence of the IDF on the Philadelphia route, or the Philadelphia corridor, and the Rafah crossing. Tomorrow, Hamas is supposed to receive the updated outlines. Sources briefed on the matter said that the meetings in Cairo were good and they were productive. There was a productive spirit, and that the gaps were narrowed in order to lead to an effective and quick summit on Sunday. The sources also said that the work of preparing the appendices and the issues related to the promotion of the abductee deal has actually been completed. In the meantime, the mediators continue preparations for the summit on Sunday. At the moment, it is not clear Hamas will reach the summit, even if they arrive. It is not yet known whether they will agree to negotiate or just present a negative answer. In the meantime, the spokesperson for the National Security Council at the White House, John Kirby, referred earlier to the talks about the hostage deal, saying in a briefing to reporters that the talks last night in Egypt were constructive. According to him, the head of the CIA is in Cairo. The process is progressing. What is critical is that everyone participates in the talks and the parties continue to work towards implementation. Everyone comes to the talks with the aim of finalizing the details of the implementation of the agreement. Kirby added that the U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Brett McGurk, also is staying in Cairo, noting that, quote, when you look at the May 27 outline, there is a clear responsibility on both sides here. What we want to see is that both sides meet these obligations, end quote. Regarding the details of the talks, he emphasized it would not be helpful to go into details, but think about what the deal will do for the residents of Gaza. This will bring them a period of calm and a path to the end of the war and the bloodshed. Because the cessation of hostilities, this will bring a great opportunity for all of us, including the U.S., to dramatically increase the humanitarian aid that goes into Gaza, which they desperately need, said Kirby. This will allow the abductees to be brought home. If the talks progress well and both sides come to the negotiating table, this could be the reality, and we will strive for it. They ended it there. The United States is continuing down the same path of supporting Israel endlessly. You're talking about bringing a period of calm and rest for Gaza. Bringing a period of calm and rest for Gaza was first and foremost start with you not sending Israel bombs to land on the heads of the people of Gaza, Mr. Kirby. That's number one. Stop arming them. Who's causing the misery? With which weapons? Israel is causing this with your enablement and support, and with your weapons, and with your money, and with your fighter jets, and with your bombs, and with your barbaric support. What are they doing it with? So if you genuinely want relief for the people of Gaza, firstly, stop arming Israel. You're talking about these positive vibes, and we have an opportunity to continue, and it's important for both sides to come. Why is Hamas not coming? Because they're seeing the facade. They're seeing this as a joke. It's a massive joke. You're going there saying, oh, we were progressing 1 centimeter. Do you know it's progressing 1 centimeter, by the way? What do you mean progressing 1 centimeter? You've been negotiating for 10 months. It's clear as daylight, clear as the sun, what's happening in Gaza. The ICJ called it a genocide. You've seen the destruction. People are documenting everything from Gaza. You don't even need media. You don't need us, right? And you're still supporting the side that's committing all of that and acting like you apply pressure. What is this game of the United States? What is this game? Clearly, they are in it 100%. They are in this 100%, and it's all a show. It's all theater. Like, we'll go and buy the cause. Yeah, please go. Act like you're willing to think, oh, yeah, I'll go and I'll withdraw a couple of 100 meters so that I can come back the next day. What is this? What is this joke? At the end of the day, you have people genuinely suffering, and he's admitting that the people are suffering. But instead of taking concrete action to try and de-escalate, they push things further. They push things further. In Gaza, they push things further in Ukraine. They're supporting Zelensky and his thugs from going to Kursk, controlling the nuclear facilities there, electricity, right? All of that, the United States is behind that. They are reckless. They're becoming more and more reckless. And we're seeing no sign of de-escalation. And the situation requires something very basic and simple, by the way, just a ceasefire. Like, it's not, no one's asking the American administration now, hello, Mr. Biden, Mr. Blinken, please provide us with the ultimate solution for the Middle East. No one is asking you that. All the people are asking for is to simply apply concrete pressure with calculated steps that are implementable and would most likely work to stop Israel. Apply more pressure on them. What the United States is doing is enabling further genocide from Israel. Let's be clear. The United States is enabling something far bigger than what has happened so far. With all of this devastation, all of this catastrophe, what is the United States telling Netanyahu? Fine, just talk, and we will send you more and more bombs, and we will tell you to go and talk again, and we'll go to Cairo on another day, and we'll come back. And okay, what are they trying to do with all of that? They are trying to make the Palestinian people kneel down. The people, before we talk about movements, they are trying to make the Palestinian people kneel down and not handle any more of this. But the Palestinian people are seeing it clearly. If the Gazan population saw Israel coming with its force to Gaza and only fighting Hamas genuinely, and Hamas was delaying all of this and saying, no, we want to continue fighting, the Palestinian population would tell Hamas, listen, Hamas, you've been fighting for 10 months, and Israel says, maybe, hypothetical, right? And not to say that that would have happened, but a hypothetical situation or a scenario where Israel invades Gaza as this enlightened occupation and does not target civilians and only tries to attack Hamas, and we don't have a high civilian death toll. The Palestinian people know what you're doing. You are targeting them. Hamas is collateral damage. The Palestinian fighters fighting Israel, they are the collateral damage. The numbers of casualties when it comes to the Palestinian resistance is negligible. It's nothing in comparison to the... Why? Because Israel is implementing what it actually wants to implement, a genocide and mass-scale destruction in Gaza, to force the people one way or another to go away from Gaza. But that's not happening. That hasn't happened, and the people know you, and the Palestinian resistance is not backing down, and the Palestinian resistance now, led by, or with the top resistance movement being Hamas, is led by a man named Yahya Sinwar. Yahya Sinwar is unlike any of the previous leaders we had. Yes, there are certain elements that are connected. They share the same ideologies, the same vision, the view of the resistance, the view for liberation. However, Yahya Sinwar is cut from a different cloth, this man. And ever since he came in, you had no talking with Israel. They're not negotiating. That's unprecedented. Hamas not negotiating. That is Yahya Sinwar. I'm not negotiating. We agreed on a ceasefire, and the Americans agreed on it. And you had a UN Security Council resolution. Don't fool us. Implement them. We're not going to waste time. Now, some people say that Yahya Sinwar is doing that because he knows that it's going to play in his favor eventually. That's very true to a very large extent. Even yesterday, when we spoke about the previous Israeli Major General, the retired Israeli Major General Itzhak Brik, he said that we have 1 year. If this war of attrition continues, then Nasrallah and Sinwar, they're winning. Why? Because we can't maintain a war of attrition. Israel does not operate like that. Israel has already been going through certain things that it's never been through. This war of attrition, the battles happening inside of Israel, and Israel being affected by all of that at every level: societal level, economic level, political level, military level. Previously, when Israel had wars, the effect would be on the other side, or in the areas that Israel was targeting. The whole philosophy of war was strike in your enemy's territory and strike very quickly, get the job over and done with fairly quickly, Air Force usually, maybe some special forces, and go back. Israel is not affected, the people are going about their daily lives, businesses are fine, only a fraction of the army is being used, tourism is okay, you don't have international repercussions, easy. Everything flipped now. Everything that's happening is against the Israeli philosophy, and they haven't been preparing for it. Israel, from a military perspective, they haven't been preparing for an open war. As a matter of fact, they have reduced their ground combat forces with time, Israel. They started to rely heavily on technology as time passed by. And again, under the leadership of Benjamin Netanyahu, who was leading Israel from catastrophe to catastrophe, from election to election, another election to another, 6 and 7 years, and then led to the judicial reform, having these governmental coalitions with anyone under the sun, and now they're destroying the state from its core. Resignations from the military is no longer respected in Israel, there's no trust in anyone, no one knows where things are going, no reassurance politically, no solution in the horizon, everyone is on high alert waiting for the next day what's going to happen, let alone the millions fleeing the state for good and never coming back. However, the United States is still sponsoring that. The United States is failing to even reach half a solution. And again, that's unprecedented. Previously, the Israeli Prime Minister, senior figures in Israel, they used to have some respect when it comes to the United States president. Despite the lobbying, despite the power of the lobbying, despite AIPAC and all of that, when the United States says something, they will concede. It happened in the Reagan administration, happened with the first Bush administration, and Israel took certain steps. It happened in 2006 as well, with George W. Bush Jr. in the war in Lebanon in 2006. However, Benjamin Netanyahu does not care whatsoever about the United States president. And he is relying heavily on his power and his influence and the influence of the Zionist lobby inside of the United States to continue his policies, because from his perspective, I'm still enabled, I'm still getting what I want, and I still get what I need to continue, and I'm still here. So the United States is failing, and this is only escalating. Today, like I said, with the increased levels of attacks from the resistance, and with that not being anything related to the revenge or retaliation for the assassination of the senior figures, we're seeing escalation after escalation. And again, we are not seeing any sign of hope when it comes to the ceasefire, or a temporary ceasefire, or a solution, or anything of the sort. And unfortunately, the Palestinian people in Gaza are the people who are suffering most from this. And this is what I wanted to share with you. Let me open the space for all of you. If you wouldn't mind, if you have a comment for me, highlight it, please. And again, apologies if I'm going to miss some of your comments. I'll try to address all of them. Bob Marston, thank you so much for that. You said this morning, Euromed NGO released finding that out of the 40,000 plus murdered in Gaza, 2,001 were infants or toddlers under 1 year old. Now that is an infanticide. May Allah grant them peace. That's why I call it an infanticide. I don't know why not more people call it an infanticide. It's not just a genocide. It is an infanticide, the homicide, the mass homicide of infants. This is what's happening in Gaza. And out of the 40,000 reported, of course, or confirmed, because the health ministry in Gaza was able to verify it, right? Because you have at least, according to many estimates, 10,000 more missing. And the problem is some of them will never be identified. That's the problem. But again, people need to understand that this 40,000 figure, it's because of the integrity of the health ministry. They need to verify. They need to have certain tests, although it's so difficult on them. But yes, and apart from 40,000, over 17,000 children under the age of 18, 70% in total are women and children. And you need to understand, this is what the Israelis want. This is why we post regularly the comments from the Israeli media. You go and listen. Go to some Israeli websites and see some, reports about children being killed. And I share these sometimes in my community tab. I shared some of the comments after the report about this poor man who had his wife and 2 newborns, several days old, being targeted. And reports say that Israel targeted the woman deliberately because she was a doctor and she was documenting Israeli crimes. Imagine. Knowingly. What were the people saying in the comment section? Good riddance. 2 more. Why do you even have time to have kids? 2 less terrorists. Lies. Hamas. This is what they say. So, depravity, you're talking about the lowest of the low of humanity, right? They have shown us a side that is unseen, really. And again, we hope and pray that we at least reach a ceasefire to, of course, lift the pressure off the residents of Gaza, who have been suffering the most in the past 10 months. If anyone across the world, hell, if a whole other nation or state suffered 1% of what these people suffered from, they will be in trauma for 3 generations. Only 1%. And that was from Bob. Thank you for that, Bob. Chris, the average US citizen is raised to believe in a system which has become corrupt. They watch it as if a Game of Thrones were played out. Those that complain, silenced by their media. 100%. And it's still evident, and I'm going to be having hopefully more shows about that. Today I had a poll on the community tab, who should be the next US president. Of course, and not surprising, the majority of my viewers said Jill Stein. It's not surprising, over 60%. But in the general grand scheme of things, you're talking about, or the media talks about, Trump versus Harris, Trump versus Harris, Trump versus Harris, Trump. This is how they reinforce the two-party system. They want to keep it there as much as possible. And, it's the least bad option. There's no hope for anyone else. This is how they maintain it, by ignoring everyone else, like they ignored previous candidates, by the way, that they didn't like, even if they were Republicans in many cases. Cisco, where are the most Palestinians at currently? In South Gaza in camps? No, they're spread throughout. Why? Because Israel told them about safe zones, so many safe zones, but there are no safe zones. Israel was targeting trucks carrying families and children, landing a bomb on it, and the people flying, going to a safe zone. And they still tell them to go to a safe zone. And it's as if they like it, Genesis, as if they enjoy seeing the misery and destruction. Sylvester understood that Hamas prepared for a longer siege, but fact is that the IF is leveling all entrances to the tunnels house by house, cleaning all areas. Is it really possible for them to resist? Well, they're still resisting, and they're still there. It's 10 months in, and Israel leveled everything, and they supposedly dug everything. And back from, what was it, March, they were saying we dismantled most of the tunnels. At one point, they said we dismantled all of the tunnels in Khan Yunis. And then we dismantled all of the brigades apart from the Rafah ones. Now they're saying they dismantled them, but they're still facing resistance from them. You see, it doesn't matter how much they try and level. Some of these tunnels are very deep. And the openings that they find are mostly booby-trapped opening. So clearly the Palestinian resistance has been preparing for a long time for this. And they work on it and prepare for it even during the war. Siraj, thank you so much for your super, much appreciated. And Trevor X saying independent American candidate Robert Kennedy announces his withdrawal from the presidential race and his support for Donald Trump. Really? Yeah, that's true. Well, it's not surprising. It's not surprising, is it? He was supporting Israel, Kennedy, too. Robert Kennedy Jr. suspends U.S. presidential campaign and endorses Trump. Well, what's his reasoning? I was surprised to discover that we are aligned on many issues. He also praised Trump's call for an end to Russia's war in Ukraine which he blamed the US and the NATO alliance. Well, I mean, to be fair, it's not really surprising. I'm not really surprised by that. Because, you know, some people had hope in Kennedy, but he proved to be an establishment, a guy of the establishment, you know. The Badger Salam Ahmed heard anything about the huge ambush against the IO that happened a few hours ago. Apparently, it was one of the biggest of all. Yeah, we spoke about it, and it was very intense. It was an area where Israel wanted to expand its central command, the Netzarim line, further by demolishing even more buildings in Gaza. And they had an ambush for them that they took down approximately 15 soldiers in. And Israel had to admit many helicopters were seen evacuating some of these people. And Israel admitted that one was killed, at least. World Scoop TV, thank you so much for that. You said China, Russia may have Iran hold off until US elections, using cyber/material means to exploit American polarization, forcing two major fires at once, spreading their resources and decision-making centers. You see, I mean, when it comes to this interference, and they spoke a lot about Russia previously with Donald Trump in 2016, and they're ignoring the big elephant in the room, the Zionist lobby and AIPAC that are blatant about their support and them buying candidates. Hell, we saw one candidate who was offered $20 million, $20 million only to run against Rashida Tlaib. Let me see if I can share that with you. Look. And that wasn't the only one, by the way. There was another one. Let me show you. Look at that. Senate candidate in Michigan says he was offered $20 million to challenge Tlaib. Right? A Democratic Senate candidate in Michigan, that was on November the 22nd. $20 million by a Michigan businessman to drop out of the race and instead take on the primary challenge against Rashida Tlaib, the Palestinian American representative who was censored this month for statements about the Israel-Gaza war. And he was not the only one. He was not the only one. There was another guy too. So can you imagine the level of money that these people are pouring in? You're talking about ridiculous amounts of money. And no one's talking about them. So they're talking about China, they're talking about Russia. What are their lobbies in comparison to AIPAC and the Zionist network and the blackmailing network? that we don't know the scale of even. Gullyberg is saying air warning sirens in Haifa area. Not surprising. Hezbollah almost reached Haifa multiple times. They hit an area that's very close to it too. But we haven't had an attack from Hezbollah directly on the city. Well, at least not a published one so far. New Glow saying, is it began with Hezbollah rocket attack on military bases? If attack was with Katyusha rockets, I believe they have better rockets. Of course they have better rockets. Hezbollah so far are using less than 5% of their firepower and force. Katyusha is their, like, chewing gum. That's their Katyusha. That's like there you go. They haven't used hardly anything. Some people used to say previously, like they used 20% of their force. They haven't used 5% of their force. And what does that show you? That shows you that they are very calculated in how they operate. They are very calculated. They are genuine in their will not to escalate and not to drag for a bigger war. They are clearly using their forces as a supporting front. That did change reportedly, according to the Secretary General of Hezbollah back in his last speech after the assassination of Fuad Shukor. However, there's still space. There is still room to try and solve the problem. But instead of Israel's supporters going to Netanyahu and forcing him to stop, right? Because don't forget, if any other country did 0.1% of what Netanyahu did, the United States would have used military force. They would have called the NATO and they would have used military force against that country, saying they're not respecting human rights and they are killing the civilians. Not when it comes to the Palestinian people, not when it comes to Netanyahu, not when it comes to Israel. That's why I always said Palestine is the compass, is the moral compass. Tell me what's your position on Palestine so I can tell you who you are and how moral you are. See these people telling me, I support this people, I support that. And when it comes to Palestine, I'm not sure, They're afraid of being labeled for criticizing this little child murdering entity. Thank you so much, Mr. Putin, for joining my show regularly. The Russian president is with us again. He's saying, I, Mahmoud, Germany is the second largest provider of arms to Israel. Why is Germany always on the wrong side of history? Well, things clearly didn't change that much from the 30s until now, didn't they? What are they supporting? Fascism. Supporting Nazism in Israel. How else can you explain it? And that was from the Russian president. Thank you so much, Mr. Putin. Thank you for taking your time to join my show. Eileen Strange, Salam Mahmoud, looking forward to getting my mod merch. Oh, glad. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. RFK Jr. told both Harris and 8 know that he would support them if they gave him a cabinet seat. Guess Trump won for us. Yeah. And ever since his last statements after the war started, this genocide, I previously looked at him and said, maybe a change of tone. But again, when it comes to Palestine and Israel, everyone is exposed. But do they have something on him? Do they? This is what I immediately think. What's the tie? What is the tie? It's like either you're part of this, I don't know, some sort of a cult or something, or you are blackmailed, or you were bribed in one way or another. How can you explain that? How can any person with a sound mind and a functioning moral compass legitimize this entity? I'm not saying support what they're doing, I'm saying legitimize their existence as a neo-colonialist, apartheid, supremacist, racist entity, a terror state. How can you legitimize them? How? There's no excuse for it. And he is comparing them to U.S. carrier, Kennedy said. What did he say? He said Israel is like an aircraft carrier in the Middle East. So what are we expecting from him? Nothing. And again, you know, the mainstream media, they act like it's only between Trump and Harris. And that's a big problem. And that's where most people fall into the trap. Because, again, you know, most people really and truly, they just follow the crowd. They follow the crowd, and they are more fooled by mainstream media than they would like to think they are. Media saying, well, only Trump and Harris are the only, okay, that's fine, you're the only option. So of course I'm not going to support for anyone else. Why? Because I'm going to be wasting my vote. Therefore, it would end it between Kamala and Trump, who are held by a foreign entity. Talking about America, and you know, these people surprise me who talk about this America first and Donald Trump and America first and make America great again. Make America great again with Trump getting hundreds of millions from the Zionist lobby and licking the boots of the Zionist lobby and Benjamin Netanyahu, and giving Israel what no other US president gave. What America first? You mean Zion first? It's absurd. AH saying, did you see that video of the assassination carried out by Al-Qassam brigades in the Jordan Valley? Who was that Zionist that was deleted? Yes, I saw that. And it is a new move, by the way. This is I did not talk about it. I'll take this opportunity to talk about it. So they released the video. Of course, we're not going to publish it here, you know. With a man having this operation, and then he shot a police officer, I think it was. And Al-Qassam Brigades released it as with the man with the video. Now, this is a very dangerous development. Firstly, we had this explosion in Tel Aviv a few days before. Then we have this video. Okay, you're talking about videos from Israeli-controlled areas. And it's a very dangerous development. So what does that mean? That means that all of the warnings that the establishment in Israel received by telling them the longer you delay a ceasefire, the more you prolong the genocide in Gaza, the more you risk an all-out war escalation in the West Bank and a regional war. Now, everyone is talking about a regional war. Previous Israeli prime ministers, people in the security establishment, they're all blaming Netanyahu for dragging the region for a regional war. Yet, the United States, some of the EU states, they're going to Iran asking them not to escalate. The Israeli prime ministers are telling you, our prime minister and his government are pushing the Middle East for regional war and we need to stop him. And foreign governments come to Israel and say, you know, can we take a step back and what have you? And they go to Iran and say, no, don't attack, otherwise you'll be nuked. See how absurd it is? So you have people inside of Israel, and I'm talking about Zionists, and I'm talking about previous prime ministers, and really profound Zionists to the core, who want the state of Israel to survive as much as possible, saying all of that against the prime minister and the foreign ministers and presidents and senior figures, leaderships of the United States, the UK, France, Germany, going to Iran to say, no, you don't escalate. Well, the Israelis are telling you our prime minister is the problem. And what are they doing? Led by the United States administration, supporting the man. Supporting the man. What does that all tell you? They are leading what's happening. Whether or not the lobby is strong and it's not strong and it's controlling, it's not controlling, you are enabling it. You're doing it. You are doing it. You're pushing him. You're enabling him. You're supporting him. And you're just having this theater of talk and leading the whole region for an all-out war. And listen, talk about international security, okay? They like to use these terms, international security. They talk about international security and terrorism as if they are on the right side of history. Firstly, they are the great-grandfathers spreading terror across the whole world. Then, international security. This recklessness is pushing us for a world war. And if we reach a world war, we're looking at nuclear bombs. Do you know what's nuclear bombs? Many people in Western countries, they don't know what it feels like being in war zones, right? People are worried about, the next meal and where shall I go and have dinner at and what have you, basic stuff. Let alone nuclear war. And we're closer than ever. Look at what they're doing. Look at who they're supporting. The Zionist thug, Zelensky, and what he's doing in Russia. They are attacking nuclear facilities. Do you understand that? And they are crossing all of the red lines of Russia. Russia and China, they're the ones who are being sensible. They are the ones being sensible. They're sending them more US weapons. They're supporting what the hell are you doing? So by them doing all of that, they are pushing the whole world on the brink of collapse. Unless that's what they want, you know what I mean? Unless this was really, really what they want. Think, okay, we'll hide in our bunkers or what have you, end humanity, and control the world in an easier manner. Is that what they want? And again, can they guarantee that if that's what they're looking for? Bill Nye, do you think Bibi will do the political Samson option and reveal all of the blackmail on Western politicians if they stop supporting Israel? That's interesting. That is very interesting. Firstly, with regards to the Samson option, no matter what, he will save himself. Why? Because he's protecting his family. His son is bathing in Miami when the Israelis are sent to die, not his son. So he's implementing the Hannibal Directive on the Israeli population. With regards to revealing the blackmail of Western politicians, it's a good question, and I wonder sometimes, if you are a person in power in a Western country and you are blackmailed or there's something sensitive against you, don't you have an ounce of decency to sacrifice that for the sake of people's lives? Clearly they don't. Clearly they don't. So it's combined with other stuff too. It's combined with a sense of supremacy and lack of care to these human beings, these wonderful human beings, primarily in Gaza. And they genuinely have some sort of ideological alignment. And they're probably threatened. Shannon L, thank you. You said, I heard many independent journalists like Stoker and Blumenthal censored during DNC. Oof, have you seen this DNC? The people were calling some people. Firstly, they didn't allow people to go and talk for the Palestinian people, but they allowed the Israeli side. And then there were people protesting outside of the convention and reading out the names, some of the names, because they would take days to read out all of them, of the Palestinian martyrs in Gaza. They were closing their ears, going out of the convention, closing their ears as if they don't want to hear you even. So they'll censor everyone. They'll censor everyone. They'll intimidate them too. Kashmiri vlogs, can Egypt and Turkey do more for Palestine ground troops to protect? Oof, they can. Many people can do something to protect. Many countries can. And even before we talk about ground invasion or what have you, you can use other measures like your political leverage, diplomatic leverage, economic leverage. Listen, many of these things that we see are also financially motivated and motivated economically. Benjamin Netanyahu, 2 weeks following the 7th of October, handed out gas exploration contracts for multinational companies to explore gas off the shores of Gaza. Are you going to tell me that your country is under the biggest attack in history and you are facing an existential threat? The first thing that would come across your mind is handing out gas exploration contracts? What does that tell you? That tells you they knew something was coming. They knew something was coming. They enabled it. And they thought, I'm going to implement the plan to once and for all get rid of the population, have a bigger Jewish supremacy demographically, expel the Palestinians, because the Palestinians are a majority between the Jordan River and the sea since 2016, for those of you who don't know. And Israel is constantly facing a problem with the demographics. I'll solve that and I'll have the economic gain. I'll have the economic gain because we know there's gas. You see, Israel steals gas everywhere. Lebanon, Gaza, everywhere. Thieves. This is a thief state based on theft, squatting establishment. And the talks of the Ben Gurion Canal started to pop up. And these, alongside the security measures too, were some of the reasons why the Egyptian government didn't make life easy for them when they wanted to expel the Palestinian people too. They knew about the plans. They know about the Ben Gurion Canal, they know about the gas exploration, they know about their will and desire to control Sinai. Marvin is saying, did you see the supposed letter from Ronen Bar to Bibi? He's warning Israel getting out of control internally. Hilltop youth out of control, damage to Israel world image, predicting more attacks. Ronen Bar, the previous head of the Mossad, Tamir Prado, people who are with him now, people who have been with him before, previous prime ministers, people who were in the IDF, in every security establishment, in the military intelligence directorate, previous Shabak heads, previous Mossad heads, the population, historians, all of them have been warning him. But he is a psychopath, narcissistic, megalomaniac psychopath, Netanyahu. You need to understand his personality. When he started to give more power, some people in the Israel establishment, although they enabled the squatting establishment of the West Bank, they had their reservations. Why? Because when they were dealing with them, they knew about the mentality and the fact that these people are able to go out of control. Now they have people in the government. They're controlling. They are the state. So you're facing a massive clash between what is labeled as the classic Zionism and the religious Zionism. And to them, the religious Zionism is a bigger threat than anything else. Why? Because it's leading Israel to where it is now. And people have warned from this before, saying if you have these people in power, be careful. People in Israel were petrified of, well, at least some of them, of course, because there's a split, from a religious Zionist figure, for example, controlling the Ministry of Education before. Now they're controlling the national security, and now that's Ben Gvir, and Smotrich is the finance minister, but he also has a new position that Netanyahu created to have his government, a minister in the Ministry of Defense, supposedly promising him to have control of the West Bank. That led to many clashes between him and the actual defense minister, Yoav Gallant. And he also did that to poke Yoav Gallant because he has a personal thing with him. He has a problem with him. So many people in Israel warned from that. But who is there to listen? Netanyahu. Netanyahu is the man who, again, led Israel to so many elections. And when you talk about elections, put everything to the side. When you talk about insisting on being in a position of power solely for the position to remain in power, and sacrificing everything in the process, you talk about a very dangerous personality. Like traditionally we'd say, you don't give the power to those who seek it. You give the power to those who you see can actually be good when they reach power, not for those who seek it for the sake of power and for the sake of fame and for the sake of control and for the sake of taking resources. But that's what he's done. Yet despite all of that, he has his group of supporters. He has the Netanyahu cult who see him as almost a divine being. And he has this feeling of him being, I'm the king of kings of Israel, the longest serving prime minister, the eternal leader, the person who will save Israel, the person who will be viewed as the hero who was right in opposition to everyone else and all of the other expectations, despite so many other people warning him. And he has this approach now. When he talks to the negotiating delegation, tell them, you don't know what you're talking about. I know. You don't know them. You don't know Hamas. I know them. Or when he will go and sit down and have a meeting with the chief of staff, Herzi Halevi. Listen, like these people or not, swear at them and don't swear at them. They've been in their job for a very long time. I told you so, he'll tell him. I told you so. By what? By going into Rafah and doing what? Failing in Rafah. Genocidal mentality, disrespect, and he's patronizing everyone around him, acting like no one knows anything. That's psychopathy. You're insane. You're talking about really an insane individual. However, he has sales skills, Netanyahu. He will sell it to the people in any way, shape, or form. He has marketing and selling skills in how he presents things, in how he spins things, in how he covers up massive failures, in how he even managed to have so many government coalitions and sometimes with only one person in a majority, right? And again, even if you think about that on its own, having such an unstable government, when you're in power, you don't want an unstable government. Ideally, you want national unity. You want people, sacrificing here and there, giving up a couple of bits so that we can have a unified government and serve the people. We're not here for, we're here for a few years, all of us are going to go or have our day one day. But you want to support and serve the people. No, he will be in power with only one man, and the state can collapse. And with that, he will use the most racist tones, bring all these awful people. That's leading to where we're at now. And don't think some Israelis weren't aware of that. They were. So Ronen Bar and many. That's why he's threatening to sack them. Do you remember when we spoke about his threat to sack all of the negotiating delegation? Almost. He was planning to sack all of them, and he was planning to sack Yoav Gallant again. Although Yoav Gallant was sacked before. When was he sacked? He was sacked in the judicial reform days. Why? Because he was sympathizing with the people. He saw the people in the streets, and it's an unstable situation when you have people in the streets and you're not listening to them. Like when you have a lot of people genuinely worried about something and they have a reason to worry, whether or not you totally agree with that worry, you need to understand that you need some sort of stability. Instead, you'll say, no, we have the mandate and we were chosen, even if it's with 2 or 3 or 4%. What about the rest of the state? If you are the prime minister or the president of the country, you're no longer the president of the party that chose you or the people who chose you. You are the leader of everyone, including those who hate you. So you listen to those who hate you too, and you give them their rights. And you try and come up with solutions. But what he has done is the total opposite. He always does the opposite. And many people are warning, and he's still ignoring. Mahib, salam Mahmoud, salam brother, thank you for your excellent live stream as usual. Pleasure, my friend. You mentioned this feels like the end of Israel. What do you think post-Israel look like? Why does the US continue to fund it? Yes, it looks like the end of Israel. I thought it was the end of Israel on the 7th of October. And what do you think post-Israel will look like? Well, before we talk about post, you talk about the process of the end. Why are we saying the end? We're saying the end because we no longer have a horizon, even any glimpse of hope for the continuation of the Zionist ideology with all of its flaws and with the fact that it's incompatible with humanity, it's incompatible with the 21st century. It's a supremacist ideology that has been exposed to its core. It's no longer tenable for such an ideology to control a state. That's number one. Secondly, all of the devastating effects on every level, societal levels, economic levels, military and political levels. Split society, failed economically, not viewed nicely, to say the least, by the world, viewed as a pariah state, as a criminal state, as a genocidal entity. How can it stay there? Doing all of this barbarism, how can it stay there? How can anyone be in power when he can commit that many crimes? How can anyone be in power? So it's undeniably the end. However, when you say the end, that doesn't mean it's imminent. It could take months, it could take years, it could take a couple of decades, right? However, the pattern is Israel has always been buying time. Always buying time and having a new status quo. Always. And the problem is, Israel in general, as a general theme, they didn't have the reality check that they need. They never had a true reality check. The people in Israel, the Israelis who try and give Israel as a whole a reality check are a minority. And they are ignored by society, and they always have something to say about them. People who criticize the country to the core out of their love for the state and out of their want to try and solve the problem, out of want to try and reach a solution. And the problem is when you start silencing the people who criticize you the most, you miss the biggest opportunities possible for you to progress and succeed. Because think about it at a personal level. You hear something you don't like about a genuine flaw in yourself and you don't like it, but you think about it afterwards. If you get annoyed, you probably swear at the person who said it. But I think to myself, you know what? Actually, yeah, that's a problem. It requires you to feel something negative initially for something to change, right? In Arabic, there's a saying, صديقك من صادقك لا من صدقك. Your friend is he who was honest with you, not he who always clapped for you and believed you. Meaning he's a mirror for you. Listen, my friend, I love you, but this, I don't agree with you on that. I think you should ditch this habit or this, whatever it is. Instead, Israel relies on primarily the US. Instead of looking internally and its national entity, even with all of the history and everything, and assuming that there is a prospect for something, right, which doesn't seem possible, they rely on the drug dealer. They rely on the drug dealer who, instead of telling his addict friend, listen, you can't do this anymore, you know, you're killing yourself. No, they'll give them more. And Israel is addicted to killing. And the United States is supplying them with every means possible to continue the killing. And some people are making a profit out of that. Making a profit out of it. So that's why I think we're reaching the end. Post will probably be problematic for a while. However, we could all be surprised that it won't be. Why? Because core elements of the establishment or the racist establishment will probably flee or finally have that reality check and have to live with it and be forced to live with it. Be forced to live with the fact that I'm no longer a superior here, I'm just an equal person. Instead of thinking about that before and implementing it and saying, hold on a second, you know, this formula hasn't been working really for 76 years. It must be something wrong with this formula, you know, let's try and change it. They will be met with reality. What's the reality? You are not above other human beings. You are not above them. So you will see that, and with any significant political change, and I was actually planning on having an event at one point, calling it a vision for the future, Palestine, a vision for the future, where I will be talking about all of the elements that will be included or could be included and implemented in a potential equal state in the future. I, of course, had a book, but it would be interesting and nice to also have a vision for how it could be after it's implemented, how it could look like, right? Now, why does the US continue to fund it? Because clearly the United States is still interested in the supremacist entity continuing there, being part of the low-heat conflict and managed chaos. Why? Because the low-heat conflict and managed chaos will constantly bring more and more money to the military-industrial complex and not necessarily explode all things out. And the funny thing is, although this is a policy for the Pentagon, it's a foreign policy for the United States, having conflicts but low heat that are controlled and managed, Israel is demolishing that. And although they're demolishing that in front of their eyes, they are still enabling it, despite the fact that it's part of their policy. Whether or not you agree with the policy, of course, you know, it's a policy that serves the interests of the people at the top, not the American people. Why? Because you are channeling so much money. The United States spent trillions on unnecessary wars abroad. And when I say unnecessary for the average American person, what does the average American person want? Security, health, freedom, liberty, right? Education, basic stuff. And instead of addressing these things with a small, tiny portion of those trillions spent, they continue down the same path. So the United States is still interested in having chaos across the world. They still have the same post-World War II view of the empire. The people in power, they still have that same view of the empire. That's why they continue to fund it. And they share many things with the people who support Israel. And, you talk about racism and supremacy and whatever else you want to say, they share the same values. And what they committed across the world is no less evil than what Israel's commits. As a matter of fact, it's far worse. It's far worse. So to them, it's Israel. How can you do anything? Although, listen, I am certain that there are people in the US establishment who know that a solution, for example, a one-state and democratic solution in Palestine is the shortest, quickest, and ultimately the most long-lasting solution that they can have. But they can't say it. We had certain hints. Like I heard reports of a speech, although I haven't heard it myself, but I heard reports about it that Hillary Clinton had, I think it was with one of the Israeli lobbies in the US, saying that you have two options here. If you want a Jewish state, then you have to give the Palestinians a state. You have to get out of the West Bank and what have you, along down these lines. So please don't take my words as if they are, because I heard it reported on her. I haven't viewed. But if you want to continue and control the Palestinian territories, then you will have to be faced with a situation, or you might be faced with a situation in whichever term she used at that time, of having to have a democratic solution. So you will not necessarily be Jewish, right? Although we know exactly why they're using Judaism and the fact that they're using it as a front, and the fact that they don't implement it. Do they implement anything from the 10 Commandments? What are we talking about? Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, you shall not covet. What? So that's why they support, because some people are still making money. They are still making money out of countries like Israel, and the military-industrial complex is still having fun. Hamza doesn't want to ask me a question, but wants to see me smile. Here we go. That's a smile for you, my friend. Let's see if we have anything else before we wrap up. Munzer, thank you so much for your super, much appreciated. Jimmy I is saying, if there is no agreement, do you think an outside security force will just be set up in Gaza by Trump regardless of what the people want? Who would stop it? Listen, I think everyone looking at what's happening in Gaza now knows there is no potential of an external security force. Why? Because if the Israeli security force isn't able to do its job properly, which other force is going to come and do its job properly? Everyone in the world is looking at Gaza. They're saying, Israel, well, firstly, you're failing. No one wants to fight for you. Your people are fleeing. You're having desperate measures to have more people fighting for you. The prime minister's son is abroad. I'm not going to go and fight for you. So they would, you see, this idea had more popularity in the first, second months. You know, the day after, they started talking about the day after Gaza. And even at the time I was saying, talking about the day after Gaza, have some shame. Talk about the day after Israel, a country committing genocide. Send your security forces there. Send peacekeeping forces to Tel Aviv to make sure that this genocidal regime cannot commit genocide. You're sending a peacekeeping force on an occupied territory. What the hell is wrong with these people? Trump is bound by his Zionist donors. Some people said that Sheldon Adelson brought this presidency with his support for Trump. And now Miriam Adelson, she said over 100 million, didn't she? And he was just licking their boots a couple of days ago in his conference, the anti-Semitism conference, saying that, you know, Israel's tiny. It's tiny. Is there any way we can... He wants to expand Israel. He wants to have another a Balfour Declaration. So I don't think Trump is going to succeed. I don't think Trump is going to succeed in forcing something on Gaza. If Israel failed on forcing something on Gaza, Trump cannot enforce something on them. And who would stop it? By the way things are going and by what we've been seeing for the past 10 months, we've only seen escalation. We haven't seen de-escalation. We haven't seen Israel showing any signs of leniency. And we haven't seen the United States taking concrete measures to apply pressure on Israel to try and concede and reach a solution. We have seen none of that. What do we understand from that? That it's going to continue escalating. It's not like it only dripped down once in the beginning. So these are the past 10 months. This temporary ceasefire, but immediately sparking up. No other temporary ceasefire, no genuine ceasefire. All of the talk from the United States about applying pressure on Israel is theater, is real theatrical nonsense, because on the ground they're still supporting them, they're enabling them. Meaning, we're headed towards something bigger. Do we want it? Who wants wars? We hope that it ends. But you have a genocidal entity supported by the world's biggest superpower, enabling them, supporting them with whatever they like, pushing the whole region, meaning Netanyahu is getting what he wants from the United States. And potentially, they might have to eventually send some troops. We'll see how lucky they are with that. Going and dying for the sake of a genocidal entity committing the worst crimes against humanity, committing the worst genocide of the 21st century, the worst infanticide in the 21st century, one of the most barbaric crimes in human history. You want to go and die for them? I'm not sure how many people would. And I would be surprised if the United States would be able to form a coalition. From what we've seen so far, they've only gathered a couple of countries to try and defend Israel as if they need defense. You need to let everyone do whatever they want if you don't want to take action. But see, still defending Israel. They haven't said anything about attacking Israel, Iran, or fighting on behalf of Israel. And think about it for a second. Israel has been saying since the beginning that it's an existential war. And the United States, apart from muscle flexing and of course supporting them, whether they didn't fight on their behalf. They did not fight on their behalf, supporting militarily, intelligence, helping intercept missiles, yes, yes, and yes, but not fighting on their behalf. That's gonna be probably difficult. It's gonna be difficult to try and convince many people to go and fight a very big war in the Middle East after the humiliation of Afghanistan, after the humiliation of Iraq, after more calls from the United States to withdraw everyone from across the world and get the hell back and not spend money abroad and spend it internally because the people need it, to go and fight and die for the sake of Benjamin Netanyahu and his genocidal crimes. Difficult. European countries also more difficult. Germany, a Zionist state, they told Israel, it's not likely that we will have troops fighting in Israel. We will help you defend yourself. Katz, the Israeli foreign minister, when the foreign ministers of Britain and the UK and France were in Israel, he told both of them, I hope you will join us attack Iran. I hope you will join us attack Iran. That didn't happen. That did not happen. As a matter of fact, I heard that the French foreign minister told him, like, how can you even raise that? How can you even raise that prospect of us joining you to insinuate that we can attack Iran with you? And that meeting, that was the first time in decades, as far as I heard, that you had the British foreign minister and the French foreign minister going for a joint visit. So they were supposedly trying to tell Netanyahu, look, we're coming here. You know, France and the United Kingdom joined forces now to try and apply pressure on you. But again, that didn't work. And it won't work unless you have practical, concrete measures taken on the ground. Marvin, thank you so much for that. And Chris, let's see what else we have. The Badger, there are backs and forth in regards to news from Saudi and Egypt in regards to Palestine and Israel, backs and forth in regards to where their allegiances are. What is your take? Well, there is ongoing talk now about what's happening because it's the biggest thing that everyone wants to solve. Now, they would be extremely naive and unprofessional if they wouldn't have preparations for a total explosion, which is, by the looks of everything, this is where we're headed. So, Egypt, although it talks diplomacy all the time, how longer can you only talk diplomacy, right? And what if you are forced to take certain action? What's your position going to be? Which side are you going to be on? Or you're going to play it in a different manner? Likewise, Saudi Arabia. The irony is, Saudi Arabia was in the new Middle East plan of Condoleezza Rice. New Middle East plan. Let me check if I can find you the map. Yeah. So in the George W. Bush Jr. administration, we had a plan for the new Middle East. Saudi Arabia was part of that plan. Hold on a second. See if we have a clearer map. This is the only clear one I have here. Okay. So look at this map here. This is the new Middle East map. That was published by Condoleezza Rice. That was published by administration at the time. Look at, let's see, just a second. Look at Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was supposed to be split, where you have a sacred state, right? In Mecca and Medina, the holy sites for Muslims, and then have the rest of the state looking like that. Look at Iraq, a Sunni Iraq and a Shia Iraq. Jordan would have some parts of Saudi Arabia. Iran, if you can see, Arab Shia state expanding and taking some Iranian territory. Free Baluchistan, Afghanistan, Yemen expansion, right? That's part of it, okay? Because they had plans to attack multiple countries at the time, and Iran was one of them. So the funny thing is, Saudi Arabia was part of the states that would be under attack if we have something. However, it's as if the people are in denial. What's happening? It's like, you're coming next. You are coming next. What are you doing? Are they aware or are they not aware? Do they live in a different planet? Don't they know that they are targeted too? Clearly they are. And that was only part of it. That wasn't the whole thing, by the way. That wasn't the part of it. See here, it says that the above map was prepared by Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters. It was published in the Armed Forces Journal in June 2006. Peters is a retired colonel of the U.S. National War Academy. And they've been trying to do that. And again, you see some people tell you the United States does what it want. They don't do whatever they want. They had bigger plans, but they failed. Their projects failed. It failed miserably in Afghanistan, failed miserably in Iraq. But the plans are there. And when you see these plans, how can you ignore them or act like they're not there? Did they not talk about the prospect of the US continuing? And Patricia, thank you so much for that, for your super. Let's see what else we have before we wrap up. We have a couple of you. I'm sorry if I'm missing some of your comments here. And Damascus, thank you so much. Zionism is Nazism, Gaza is my witness. A little bit worse. A little bit worse. And Nurul Amni, thank you so much. First time join live, welcome. And Shane, much appreciated. Thank you so much for your generous contribution. Let's see what else we have before we wrap up. Busy live stream we have tonight. 1 hour, 40 minutes we've been going on. Wow. Time flies. Okay. All right. I'll finish it with impolite saying, do you agree that Iran still didn't attack Israel because of the macroeconomic pressure from allies countries? I think that Iran has many calculations for the response. Firstly, the ball is in their court, and that's a position of strength. The ball is on your court, you're in a position of strength. They already put Israel on tenterhooks by saying we will respond with a fierce response, and the response is very near. So Israel thought, oh my God, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. So I need to prepare myself, and I need to. So it's been at this high stress level for so long. It's destroying the state. It's destroying economy. People don't know what the hell is happening. They don't know anything about the day after. No horizon, no nothing. Fear, panic, problems. They're enjoying that. As a matter of fact, they admitted this is part of their punishment. Wait. Are they pushing Israel to relax and tone it down? Are they waiting for the US aircraft carriers to go away? Because they know if they're here, I know the US is trying to intimidate them, but again, they can use them. And with the previous example of the aircraft carrier that was in the Mediterranean previously, it left after a couple of months. Despite the fact that it said, we are here to deter Iran and Hezbollah. Hezbollah was still attacking, Iran was still supporting, but they left. And Israel was upset at the time, and they tried to lobby the United States to bring it back. No, don't take it. You're backstabbing us. What are you doing? They took it back. Is Iran waiting for them to take away the aircraft carriers, reduce the forces, and then attack? Or will they surprise them with their presence? There is, of course, the consideration of course, it's connected economically, because even countries like Russia and China, they have to fund their war. They need the economic routes to continue. But at the same time, Iran knows that it's a dangerous game if they do not respond. Why? Because all of that is about creating equations. So if you allow that to happen and you let it pass, you've given okay, in effect, by your lack of action, you have given an okay to Israel, for Israel, to assassinate people in your territory. You become a dangerous place to visit to certain people. And of course, I know it's Hamas and it's them, but again, still assassinated in the middle of Tehran. So it would put them in a very difficult position, but there are absolute calculations, because if you are talking about a response that will drag, a response that might escalate and require everyone else to participate, then you need a coordinated decision. It's no longer only your decision. If you're going to fight a couple of countries and you know it might escalate, and the country that might support you will say, I think it's best to wait a little, or try and see how things go before you attack, or try and do something else. You need to wait, assuming that's the case. And we'll wrap it up there, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in for another live stream. I really enjoyed. our live stream. And Dr. Bill Wedden, welcome to membership. Thank you so much for your membership. Thank you everyone who participated, and I'm sorry that I probably didn't read most of your comments, but that's how it is with the live. Otherwise we'll stay here forever. But I'm here with you regularly. Anyway, thank you so much for your contribution and for your comments and inputs. Much appreciated. Thank you for everyone who sent supers. Much appreciated. Thank you for your support. Let me name you all. Cool. That was from Bob, and I'm sorry if I miss anyone, by the way. Bob, Siraj, Woolscoop, Shannon, Munzer, Marvin, Patricia, and Damascus. Thank you so much for that. And Shane F. Apart from that, I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow with another live or a video or the two. Stay blessed. Have a lovely weekend. Stay safe. Relax. Have a break from the news as well, from your phones. And I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone.